to all those agents out there, don't be afraid to break your business. I think that there are so many times where we're caught in a space and place where we're afraid to make the changes, and change is supposed to be hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I look back at the 8 years that we've been together, I think we at least broke our business twice, right? Where we had years where we didn't progress. In fact, our production stepped back, but there were things that we needed to do to be able to set up the life and set up the business that we wanted for the next 3 years.
Well, in this week's episode of Entrepreneurial Impact, we've got Christal and AJ from the AJ team out of our Lake Ridge office with Keller Williams. I'm really excited to have them on, from a power couple to building out an amazing business. And also, I will give a shout out to Christal for AJ allowing her to come in and really take the reins on the operations and make it a true business. He's got amazing, energy. You'll see that within this episode. That's why I'm so excited to have them on. But without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to you guys. Tell me your story. How'd you do it? What's your passion? What's your impact? Here you go.
I mean, I think you already know the best part of it, Joe. You already let him know that he's a smart guy by bringing me on board. That's the biggest thing that's been the tremendous blessing in his business. It's nothing else left to say. Nothing left.
Yeah, we can end the podcast right here. You're good.
But no, as you mentioned, my name is Christal Johnson, and Allen and I are a husband and wife team who are running the AJ team here in Lake Ridge, Virginia. And what I will say is that, Allen brought me into this business kicking and screaming. No, I'm just kidding. But, it's been a great journey. I think that it's probably more important for Allen to start with telling the story and then kind of infuse how I came along on this journey. So Allen, I'll let you go ahead and get started.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having us.
Of course.
I always want to make sure I'll start there. The opportunity to tell your story is a very unique opportunity, because as a Black man, sometimes we don't get to tell our own narrative, right? We don't get to tell our own story. People tend to make up the stories on their own, or we're not in a position where we get an audience that really cares about hearing our story. They see the things that are on TV that are negative, right? They see the things that really captivate people's attention. But our story is, I think, just as impactful and important. And for you to have the foresight to want to tell our story speaks a lot about you, first and foremost. So I started out selling real estate about 21 years ago. Graduated from George Mason University. I'm the proud son of two really hardworking parents that were only able to send me to school because of a piece of real estate that they purchased. My dad purchased some real estate in Charlottesville, where I'm from, Central Virginia. And he knew that it would be easier for him to buy an investment property and use that investment property to leverage my college education than to save money to pay for my college education. So he did that. He bought a piece of property. When I went off to George Mason, he used the home equity line of credit to pay for my 5 years that should have been 4. So thank goodness that the equity was rising a little bit for that last year.
Like a fine wine, I get it.
Yeah. So I graduated from school, had this dream of getting this desk job with this, over in Reston on Sunrise Valley Drive. That was the Shangri-La of all jobs back when I was coming out of school, the tech corridor. I lasted about 2 weeks.
I'm surprised you went 2 weeks, man.
Two whole weeks.
You lasted probably a shorter amount of time than I did. I think I got myself fired.
You think?
Yeah.
You definitely got yourself fired.
But the long story short, I came back to school, got, reconnected with the guy that I went to school with. And, the first question I asked, and the first question everyone asks when you get out of college is, what do you do? Where do you work? He said he worked at a car dealership. I said, for real? I was like, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. And I asked him the magic question, how much do you make? He said 95,000. I said, oh, for real? I think I want to sell some cars. So that weekend I sold my first Mazda Miata, and really enjoyed it. I didn't.
I got a question.
Yeah.
For those of you listening, you can't see how tall AJ is. Did you get inside the Mazda Miata?
I did. Here's the great thing. Here's the challenge. I could only get into Mazda Miata if the top was down, because I could get my leg over and my head would pop out tall enough to be able to fit in the car. but I have driven a Mazda Miata.
I'm just having a vision of that just image and just
it's seared into your brain now. Like you'll never get it out. It's bad.
I was younger and more flexible then. Let's just say that. My knees were in the way, but ended up selling that car. And 2 years later, my accountant was like, "Hey, you're making good money. You need to buy a house because you need some write-offs." So I called my dad. My dad said, "Well, here's the funny thing. I've got $10,000 that I saved for your graduation present that I never told you about towards purchasing your first house." Went through the process of purchasing my first house, had a horrible experience. People looked at me, like they look at many people that look like me. I was young, I was either too young, too black, or smelled too much like party. I always say it's one of those three, or maybe a combination of those three. But we'll talk about that offline. But ended up going to an open house, and this lady said that she would help me. So my next Tuesday, I came into her office. I'll never forget it. It was in Springfield, and she stood me up. And I was like, man, I called my dad. I was like, that's a sign. I'm not supposed to buy a house. You're supposed to give me the money so I could buy a car. I can get a good deal on a car. He was like, that's not how it works. And my dad's so smart and so wise that he gives the universe time to answer questions. Sometimes wise people let time answer questions. So the next time was quick. The next person that came into the car dealership was a young Latino kid named Lydio. Lydio was a realtor. I told him that was obviously a sign. I ended up buying a house from him. And simultaneously through that process, I went to get my license at Nova Community College. And I decided at that moment that anyone who looked like me, or anyone who didn't look like me, or anyone who just needed someone that was going to look past who they were, who they looked like, into serving them, would always have someone to serve them. So 21 years later, a lot of homes later, and the ability to be able to work next to my soulmate and have some great people on the team and a great tribe, that's my story of real estate.
So what I think is great, this is why I wanted you guys to be on for this podcast, was just knowing the background of real estate, of how hardworking your dad was, and that, like, as a generational wealth creation, that real estate really was that vehicle. And you've got hard stories that are like actually concrete you can grab and say, hey, look, because of the ability to leverage real estate, I was able to go to school. And then I know you guys got a bunch of properties under management and things like that within Northern Virginia, which is just great for your daughters to be able to pass that on to them and actually be able to be entrepreneurs and bet on themselves, right? And I think the coolest part for those of you listening, that the one thing I really love and respect about Christal and AJ is just the ability to bet on themselves and realize that, like, if it's meant to be, it's up to me, and that I'm going to go out there and make a better life for me, my family, but then also be able to pass those helping hands to other people that might have been passed over because of race, color, whatever it may be, and be able to be that spokesperson of change, which I think is really cool from getting to know you two. So I just want to say that's been the reason that I just love engaging with you all and being able to put you on the podcast, because it's something I think, even as a white male, that, like, I don't have that experience, but I know it's there, and being able to put that forward for change and be able to get a story out there for how other people can do it and be inspirational is really cool. And I just give you kudos on that one.
Appreciate you. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So, he's slinging some houses, doing whatever, not really a business, but he's just got his energy and his passion and his just like flavor of people that just like get attracted to Allen. He's got that like ethos, right? Christal, you come in and actually make a thing of business, right?
Yeah, I'll give Allen credit. Like, he was running a pretty good business, but it's one of those things where you can literally, just on the talent that he has and his business acumen to that point, he could put anything together, right? He's one of those people where he can shoot from his hip and it's going to be successful because he has the drive, the determination, and he's very focused. So when I came in, I was in corporate America. I had that dream of, I'm going to the C-suite. I'm going to be the president of the division. And I was there for probably 13 years with the same company, just going through the ranks. And, lo and behold, we're in the government contracting world, right? Northern Virginia, we lose the contract that we had for 18 plus years, which was like unheard of in our industry and where we were. And during that time, Allen approached me and he was like, well, I've been thinking that you should come join our business. And speaking about the fact that, you got to just bet on yourself, right? And take a step out. We decided we're going to bet on ourselves, right? We were in a very comfortable situation where my income was taking care of all the family's bills, and Allen could focus his income in the real estate business on growing our generational wealth, investing in properties. So it was going to be a big deal for me to step out of having a very secure, job that was paying me, on the clock every 2 weeks. We had our health insurance and all that good stuff, but we decided that we were going to bet on each other, that we know we could take it to the next level. And that's what we did. The skills that I was able to acquire over those 13 years gave me the opportunity to be able to come into the business and kind of look at it from a bird's eye view, and then go really deep into the details to see where I can add value. The one thing I didn't want to do when I joined the business is not join because I'm Alan's wife, right? I'm joining because Alan's wife is unemployed. She needs a job. So I'm just going to hire her. I was like, no, I got to bring value to the business. So I saw an opportunity where I could really bring value. What I did in my previous world in investigations is that I was a leader of about 400 investigators throughout the metropolitan DC area. And my responsibility was people, processes, and productivity. And that is such a very common and transferable skill that went into real estate and building our real estate business. So really I came in and I focused on those 3 Ps, right? I focus on people. How do we have the right talent and partners around us who are committed to the same things? I focus on the productivity aspect of things, really dove deep into the models of KW, into the models of how we can build a very great real estate team, and making sure that everyone was able to meet their personal financial goals and the business's financial goals. And then I dove into processes, right? I wanted to make sure that we had all of our systems tight and in place, so that we can truly just make sure we elevate this thing to the next level. And, 8 years later, I'm still here. I haven't killed Alan. We work together every day, right? I get to talk to him about real estate every day. And we don't get tired of it, right? Because at the end of the day, the best thing, and people ask me this all the time, is, how is it to work with your spouse, right? For us, the best thing about that is that, number one, we get to spend so much time together, and it's good time together. The second piece is something special when you're in business with someone that you have the exact same goals and mission and vision and drive, right? So we're very much able to just bounce off of each other, a certain level of trust and just respect and admiration, to know that we're both moving the business in the direction that we've already envisioned for our family and for our future, without there being any level of tension. So I truly appreciate that. And that gives us a great opportunity for us to really grow and take this thing to the next level.
I think it's just been cool to watch it from the outside, seeing your different skill sets and how you can actually put those into a power zone and not have to be worried about something that you're not great at, because your partner, which is even also, because even for me, the amount of hours I work, if I was able to spend more time with my wife, would be amazing. So I think it's really cool from the outside looking in, seeing how your skill sets are different, but when they come together, the ability to create something amazing which you have for your business is just truly cool. And you should be really proud of that, both of you. Because of that amazing blend of yin and yang, or whatever you want to call it. I look at it, my wife is extremely she runs the ship at the house, and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way I could do that. And I get blessings every day for the balance of that is in a relationship. So it's really cool to see that from the outside.
It's awesome. You gotta know your role, right? So you both got to take on a position and a role, and make sure that you own your role and your position, and you give everybody else the authority to do the things that they do well, and then you're ready to go and take off.
So let me ask you this question. You guys have, from talking in meetings with both of you, that you've had to rebuild the business multiple times. You say, hey, we got to a certain threshold, and then we had to change that, kind of go backwards a little bit to build it to the next level, and then kind of go backwards again, go forward again. What's your vision, right? So you're doing this for your daughters and then other people you can help out in the community. What's your vision? What's the impact of what you're trying to create?
I'll just take that one.
Yeah. So just, to all those agents out there, don't be afraid to break your business. I think that there are so many times where we're caught in a space and place where we're afraid to make the changes, and change is supposed to be hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I look back at the 8 years that we've been together, I think we at least broke our business twice, right? Where we had years where we didn't progress. In fact, our production stepped back, but there were things that we needed to do to be able to set up the life and set up the business that we wanted for the next 3 years. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing I think I want everyone to kind of think about. And then the end goal is I think fluid. I think, I've gotten to the point of my life where I don't have to have a static end goal. I just want a business that makes me feel good. I want a business that allows people to come into our business and grow. I want something that I feel happy that I'm going to every day. And if I feel like that it's something that I don't feel happy coming to every day, it's either one of two things. Either I need to change what I'm doing, or I need to break it, right? So, for me, I really keep my vision the same. I would keep my vision the same.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think that for me, if I'm thinking about the end goal that we have, it really is about, we've gotten to the place where we've built the amount of income that we know is going to be able to sustain us, right? We've gotten to a place where we've been able to invest in real estate and properties at a level that we know that, at the end of the day, we're not going to be buried with whatever we take with us. It's going to be able to feed our kids and probably our kids' for a while. So when I think about now what that end goal looks like, and to Alan's point, it morphs, right? So our end goal has changed a lot over the years, right? At first, it was an income threshold we wanted to hit, right? And then next, it was a number of, real estate, that we wanted to own, right? And then now our end goal is more like, all right, how do we get to enjoy the fruits of our labor and make sure that as we enjoy the fruits of our labor, we know we're not going to quit working, right? Working is innately within us, that to Alan's point, that is very fluid, that we can move through our life, enjoy our life, and still be able to run a business that brings us joy, that brings us income, and allows us to be able to leave behind some great generational just wealth and just knowledge for our kids, right? Sometimes it's not just about what we're leaving them behind, but what the lessons that we're teaching them along the way and getting them more involved in it as well.
Yeah, and I'll add just real quick. Now it's not just about our kids; it's about our team members' kids, right? It's about building an organization that is big enough to be able to create like multi layers of generational wealth. We've got people on our team that we genuinely love, right? Like genuinely love. And that's the toughest thing about a small team is that when people come and go, you got a personal relationship with them. But I'm starting to understand as a leader that the way that you keep people around you and keep growing with people is building opportunities that are bigger than just sales. Building bigger opportunities that are bigger than just them feeling good working with you. But can you see what their vision is, and can you help them build that vision? Because if you can help them build that vision, then they'll help you build your vision.
Yeah, I think what's cool for your all's progress, just watching this, is just the ability to be humble enough to say, hey, we got to break this to be able to move forward. But then really, after you hit your income and betting on you, you're like, okay, the business really becomes a vehicle for others people's lives and like the vision that they have for whatever they want in their life, right? Whether it's time, whether it's a house, whatever that thing is. And I think what most people can see is when you get to the level of success that you all have had, it does turn back to the people, right? That you're like, does it really, you guys are on your deathbed. You're like, oh, we sold 100 million. Great. Awesome. But it's actually gonna be way more impactful to be like, here's the 20 team members that because they came into the AJ team, they might not still be with me, but I can look back at their success in the future and say, I was one of the platforms of their starting success, and they wouldn't be where they're at if it wasn't without my leadership, training, process, people, productivity that you brought up.
Right.
Which I think is really cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the other piece that we want to make sure we leave is this, our philanthropy, right? Just being very much involved in the community. We have a foundation called the Be a Blessing Foundation. And, our next, when we think about our future, it is how do we dive into that foundation and have a bigger impact on the community as a whole? And that's what we're going to be focusing our attention on over the next, several months. It's just really standing that up to be so strong that it really is a lever in the community to help other people to achieve their dreams through real estate and wealth.
I think that's huge. So to wrap us up, I always like to hit with, anybody listening, what are like one piece of advice? If there was one piece of advice looking back on all your years in real estate that you would give to somebody, what would that be?
Joe. Oh man, Joe, that's always a hard one because there's so many pieces that we can give.
Exactly. Yeah.
The thing that I would always say, and I'm sure this is not unique, right, is that you have to run your own race. I think that when we're in this game of real estate, we can see the shining lights and the bright stars, and we want to constantly try to keep pace with other people's dreams, goals, hopes, and aspirations. And we will put our own on the back burner because we're too busy trying to keep up. And so I would just say, make sure that you're focused on what it is that you want to achieve and what you want to accomplish, so that you're running your own race and you're not just trying to keep up, because that's when you get the satisfaction out of it. That's when you can really see the impact you can make, because it's about what you desire and you want, and versus what you think everyone else wants to do or wants to see you do, right? So just run your own race. Don't get too bogged down about what you see everyone else doing. That doesn't mean you don't push yourself or try to work above what you maybe initially thought, but it does mean that you should be thinking about what is it that you want to do, what impact you want to make, and how you're going to go about achieving that.
I think thank you, Chris. I don't know. There's no better way to wrap up this podcast, because basically saying like, hey, you're an entrepreneur, you're in real estate. What is your goal? What's your motivator? And define that by you, and don't worry about anybody else on the outside, because it doesn't matter, because it's the life you're trying to build. I think that's huge. So thank you, Christal. Like, amazing. So Christal, AJ, thank you for the time today. You're doing amazing things out there. And just everybody tuned in to Entrepreneurial Impact. This has been a great one for AJ and Christal. And tune into next week's episode as well. And have a great rest of your week.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.